What is up, everybody? This is Red Bull Tanker coming to you with Operation Fog of War Turn 16 for the United Kingdom. Been quite an interesting turn of events, so to speak. So let's go right into it. Alright, so not much going on the East Coast for the U.S. In Africa, the U.S. took their forces out of Normandy, took their infantry and artillery out of Normandy, came down here and killed that roaming Italian tank that was running around in North Africa. So we got that. They are building up a little bit with this force around the 1st Army in southern France. They have the 30th Infantry there. Down here in Morocco, they landed with the 32nd Infantry Division. Up north, they were able to recapture Germany took northern Italy, and then the U.S. 45th Infantry Division came back and took it. Russia did some scouting and scouted that the Germans had bought 10 tanks and put them all into Berlin. So we're all kind of trying to figure out what we're going to do to try and counter those 10 tanks that are looking to come into the game, or try to counter those 10 tanks that look like they're coming into the game. In Russia proper, Russia did very well on their turn, pushing the Germans back and clearing out. Though they couldn't take Leningrad, they cleared it out. So Leningrad will fall hopefully next turn, or even we'll wait till turn 18 to make the final push there and make the final conquest of Leningrad there, just to get some motion. We did some army rearranging. The 8th Army has left the Middle East and has attached itself to our mechanized force pushing through Russia, while the 14th Army encompasses pretty much everyone else in the Middle East. Russia has been helping put China sort of back together, so that's been good for us. China helped us out by using a spy to spy West India, and they found nothing. So now we don't know if those mechanized units are either in India or Eastern Persia. Then out in the Pacific, the Philippine force is still stuck there. The Japanese moved into Mongolia. They've also got troops hiding out in the Soviet Far East, or out in the Siberia area. Here's the massive group of unknown Japanese units that are out there. The main Japanese fleet moved down to the Caroline Islands. It kind of puzzled us that they left the Japanese waters. We figured they were going to try and do an end run around to at least come after the Hawaiian Islands. Down here in Australia, the Australians are building up for a massive defense of Sydney. Over here in southern Australia, they have 6 infantry and 12 artillery just sitting there lying in wait for the Japanese if they try and come and make a last-ditch effort to take Sydney. The United States pushing out some of their Navy to act as blockers against the Japanese. They have now built up a formidable defense in the Hawaiian Islands. Let's see here. The 3rd Army on Hawaii itself has 1 regiment of the 77th Infantry Division, with 1 regiment being in the Marshalls and then another one all the way out here in Borneo. They've got, let's see here, 3 regiments of the 1st Marine Division, 2 regiments of the 29th Infantry Division, and 4 full regiments of the 11th Airborne Division. The U.S. has broken up its massive fleet into 3 smaller fleets. We have the 1st Fleet, which encompasses all 5 U.S. carriers and their full complements of aircraft. Then we've got the 7th Fleet, which is sort of the main battleship component of the U.S. fleet around Hawaii. And then we have the second fleet that came in from the Panama Canal. And then up here, the U.S. is still preparing forces to move for Hawaii to give it its last-ditch effort. They've brought in 4 regiments of the 5th Marine Division, 1 mechanized regiment of the 4th Marine Division, and 2 regiments of the 26th Infantry Division, along with some artillery and 3 aircraft. Meanwhile, up north, the 41st Division has been remaining vigilant here in Alaska pretty much the entire game. And they've been doing a pretty good job of it. Okay, so then moving on, we'll go over casualties so far. Up to this point, Germany has lost 7 infantry, 4 artillery, a tank, and an AA gun. Russia has lost an infantry, artillery, mech, tank. Japan has lost an infantry, transport, destroyer, submarine. The U.S. has lost 3 infantry regiments and 3 infantry regiments from the 34th Infantry Division, an artillery, a destroyer, and a transport. We took some heavy losses this turn. We have lost, or prior to our turn, up to our turn, we lost, 6. We've lost 8 infantry, an anti-aircraft gun, and a fighter. The 1st Airborne Division that was in Persia was defeated by the Japanese. And Italy has lost 2 infantry, 3 tanks, and an artillery, and an anti-aircraft gun, while the Anzacs and the French did not take any casualties. All right, spying. The U.S. spied the purchases for Japan this turn, and Japan dropped down 8 submarines and 2 destroyers, which they deployed on the home islands. So I'll just quickly walk over here, drop that down. All right, so then on to our turn. Purchase-wise, we paid off 2 more damage to the London factory. We bought 3 infantry and an artillery and a fighter. We had 2 combats this turn. We sent 1 infantry regiment, one airborne regiment of the 1st Canadian Airborne into Egypt, and we resecured that. And we discovered that the Italians did shift south to Egypt, Sudan, with their remaining mechanized infantry and 3 tanks. And then finally, our last attack was against Persia again. We went in with 2 infantry, a tank, those 2 fighters, and our strategic bomber from southern Italy. And we won. We killed all 4 Japanese artillery at the cost of 1 of our own infantry. So that was a victory for us. The 9th Army is doing well, or the 14th Army is doing well in getting us our pockets back, so to speak. So overall, that was a good round. We got 4 Japanese artillery for 1 infantry. So that worked in our favor heavily this turn. All right, so that was it for combat. So non-combats, pretty straightforward. We'll start over here in Europe. First off, we took our 4 infantry and a fighter from Normandy, and we sent it down to join the U.S. First Army in southern France. And then from London, we took our infantry, artillery, and tank and dropped it in Normandy with the U.S. forces there. Which actually, that mech needs a person. So the mech, so Normandy now has 2 French infantry, a mechanized regiment of the 3rd Infantry Division, and 2 armor regiments of the 9th Armor Division. And so then we took our force. So then we took, like I said, we took our infantry, tank, and artillery, and we brought it down to aid the Normandy defenses. So we are using, so I'm just using this Union Jack marker. for right here to post our forces in Normandy. But so yeah, so then we, like I said, we sent 4 infantry and a fighter down to southern France. Up here in the north, we took our battleship, the Queen Victoria, and her destroyer escort and brought her into 110 to help protect the U.S. transport fleet there. And we took all of our anti-aircraft guns and we loaded them up onto the U.S. transport for transport to Europe to help the Normandy bridgehead. Moving on, over in Africa, the 14th Army comprised of 4 regiments of the 6th Airborne Division and another regiment of the Canadian 1st. We reinforced Egypt to help get a stranglehold on Egypt right there. We brought back all of our planes to Iraq. And then up north, we took the 8th Army, and in trying to keep it hidden from the Germans, we have moved it 2 spaces to Smolensk to try and see where we might be able to exploit some German weaknesses. We're thinking that we'll have to help even though Leningrad is open, we think the Germans will heavily reinforce Leningrad with whatever they can, and then we will have to help do a punch counter punch on Leningrad with the Russians just to secure it. But with the amount of units that Russia has in and around there, I think it's going to be pretty solid that we're going to be able to get in there and help them out. One note too is that when we took Persia, we discovered that the Japanese only have 1 infantry in eastern Persia, so we're beginning to think that Japan did pull all of its forces back to Calcutta. Our way of thinking is that they probably think that all of our mechanized forces in Smolensk are actually somewhere in the Middle East, and that since we're 2 turns away from the end of the game, they're not going to be able to see. We probably wouldn't even be able to reach Calcutta, but the nice part is now Japan's not going to be able to reach Iraq or India or Iraq to kick us out of there. So that's good for us in the short term. And then let's see here. So that was it for all of our non-combat. So our deployments. So up here again in London, we paid off 2 more damage, so our factory is at a total of 6 damage now. But still good enough for us to be able to drop our 4 units of 3 infantry and an artillery at London for transport. And then we took our fighter and we dropped it in Iraq. At the end of the turn, we collected 22 IPC. So, not bad, but it's really going to hamper us now, because now that we only have pretty much really only 1 more turn of purchasing, because obviously, at least for my prediction, with turn 18 being the last turn, basically everyone's going to spend their hard-earned money to scout, spy, try and figure out where everybody is. So that way, whatever endgame plans people have, they'll be able to action those endgame plans. All right. So, kind of look over the board one more time. Everything's looking good. We think we're going to be in a good enough position, especially in Europe, to where if it has to go to the Facebook group for a vote, we'll be able to get enough votes for the win. I mean, a lot hinges in the Pacific right now on whether or not the U.S. fleet will be able to stop a Japanese thrust if Japan goes that route. We do think that they might try and come down to Australia. But again, Australia has this nice little army hidden there that Japan, right now, we hope doesn't see, though. But they'll probably try and scout it before. They'll probably try and scout on turn 18 if they do attempt an invasion of Australia. So we'll have to hope for the best there. And I mean, it's difficult. I mean, Japan has 5 transports off of the Caroline Islands. So 10 of these units are somewhere. Have to be somewhere, including the 2 bombers. So, I mean, really hoping to see what happens. I mean, we're just praying that the U.S. is going to be able to get enough ground forces and enough ships into Hawaii before the Japanese attack on turn 18, if that's the route in which they plan to go. So that is it for turn 16 of the UK and the Far East Command. I can't really say the Far East Command because they've been out of the game for so long. Even though Japan has been nice enough to leave us Ceylon all this time, but we're not getting anything from it. Anyways, but so that is it for this turn, guys, and we will see you again for turn 17. So until then, guys, take care.